Hello with Danceable Thoughts, and this is a special presentation of an October calendar, which is a suggestion for starting your ballet unit with your classes. This is for public schools where you pretty much have class 5 days a week, but you don't have a long time. You may be as limited to only 40 to 50 minutes per class period. So there's a lot of activities that I do throughout this unit, and this unit is actually the intro. That I would stretch this all the way to the semester because it is so varied in the kinds of activities. Your students shouldn't get too bored. It's going to spend plenty of time reinforcing the valuable skills and movement vocabulary that they will get from ballet units. So I've created a lot of activities to make it fun for them. I'm going to walk you through this particular October calendar because it's 5 weeks. It's really great. And when I'm referencing some of the lesson ideas that you can find, you've got two sources where you can find these. You can become a follower, danceablethoughts.com. You can become a member. There's an exclusive access page where some of these activities you will find free for download. Not all of the resources are free for download. I'd also love for you to visit teacherspayteachers.com and search Danceable Thoughts. I have many different kinds of lessons in there, but quite a few different ballet unit lessons. So when I start talking about certain things, like there's an abbreviation for TDJ, that's Thinking Dancers Journal. That is a whole concept that I've created for ways for students to respond in writing, to predict their success, to analyze their learning as it goes. So that's a resource that I'd love for you to check out. You can get just the ballet unit one. There's one that has both the ballet bar pages and the ballet center combination pages, or you could get this and use it all school year long. That's totally up to you. I hope you'll check those out. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about commercials for the ideas that I have for you to purchase. I want to actually talk to you about the way I did this calendar. So let's start with the very first week. And in the first week, and I'm doing ballet with my students, I'm not really asking them to try to assume the ballet bar skills and jump right in. I ease them into it. So I would do a ballet history kind of fun lesson talking about the times of the royal courts when ballet emerges, and talked about the fashion and how the fashion and the customs, the way they carried themselves, had a lot to do with the way ballet positions and ballet movement and ballet etiquette emerged. I also, in that first week, do something I call the ballet to the bone activity. And while it is a skeleton, it's a lot about the actual muscles and a lot about the imagery that we use to create the ballet turnout, the ballet posture. And so it's a great activity. It's fun. It's kind of a goofy way to produce it for them instead of giving them just the hardcore anatomy lessons. So in that first week, those first couple of days, we're just going to be looking at the ballet posture, building the ballet body. You're going to do the 5 positions of the feet just so that they understand. Very famous. People use that as very common vocabulary. What I'd also love for you to notice on my calendar, Wednesdays tend to be sort of a break in the action. Wednesdays for my teaching career, we call them workout Wednesdays, and it was always for fulfilling like our aerobic fitness requirements. It was a break in the action to do something a little bit different so that whatever we did on those Wednesdays could be supporting the unit we were studying. At the same time, a lot of times you get ahead or behind, and Wednesdays are a great way to catch up or help your students catch up on those Wednesdays. So on my very first workout Wednesday of the ballet unit, I would introduce floor bar. And in the sense that floor bar, I would do very simple things just to help them find where the muscles that are responsible for creating turnout begin. We would work in that sitting position, working those legs, learning to articulate through the feet, and doing that in a sitting position instead of trying to stand. So that floor bar is a little bit of body conditioning as well. Really, they'll start working on their posture even when sitting. On the Thursday of the very first week, I'd love for them to have an opportunity to look at just clips of ballet. They have a lot, you can hear my ferocious dog in the background. They have lots of imagery about ballet dancers, but sometimes they don't have a realistic understanding of the evolution of ballet. It's not just people in tutus. So you can show them beautiful dancers in tutus, but you can show them the skill and artistry of our contemporary ballerinas and our male dancers and the athleticism that they show. I think it's wonderful. You can even, if you want to, do a little reference to an animated movie that was out not too long ago, Leap. So don't ask them to watch a whole video because they can't absorb it necessarily. The storyline, we're going to teach them later how to look at the storylines of ballet and follow that. But for that very first thing, just give them clips. Let them have the ooh-ah relationship with ballet that most people do when they see it for the first time and they see those dancers make it look so effortless. And then they're going to learn it's a little more complicated than that. So, the very first Friday is when I start the ballet to the bone, and we start talking about this crazy ballet skeleton that we work on and all the imagery and muscles that go with it. All of this information is something that you could easily test them over later in written form. When we go into week 2, that's when we actually start working at the ballet bar. I'm going to tell you that from my point of view, the most important thing that you can do with them is demi-pliés first, maybe grand plie in second, but I would even hold off on that. Tendus and dégagés, rond de jambe, and then grand battement if you feel like they've got flexibility to start with. Grand battement to me is something that can always wait for later. And then I also use the very first week to talk about port de bras. I fit that in during floor bar as I actually start working on port de bras a little bit so they can develop the strength in the muscles from the back and forward. We also talk about that in our skeleton ballerina. So that first week is all about creating very simple, basic bar combinations. Even if you don't have ballet bars in your classroom, I encourage you to give them chairs or something to give them that feeling of working with your hand on the bar, turning and doing things on the other side. Very important at that point to introduce to them the concept of en croix, to the front, to the side, to the back, to the side, which is a pattern we use in all of our ballet combinations. I actually introduced that concept to my students in the fitness unit that I would do at the beginning of the year with the intention of saying, hey, learn to do this pattern and that you're going to see it in another form later on. At the end of week 1, I already have what would be a daily grade assessment, a less important assessment, and it would be a progress check of the memory of the combinations. Wouldn't be trying to necessarily assess their technical skills at that point, but just learning that they have to be brain active when they're doing ballet bar, that you have some memorization that goes on. So when I start those first tests, it is less about looking for the perfect definition of ballet technique, and it's a lot more about learning the structure of ballet bar, how to work from side 1 to side 2, how to learn the patterns, that type of thing. So then I go into week 3 and I actually build in a time to create a rubric. This rubric that they're going to use for the actual assessment that would be for the equivalent of a major grade. This rubric is going to talk to them about being consistent with the turnout that they have. Notice that I'm not asking them for a 180-degree perfect ballerina technique. I'm asking them to find their turnout and maintain it throughout, to maintain their posture throughout, to maintain their core alignment, to maintain their rotation whenever possible, maintain their arm shapes. So a lot of the things that are happening in the very first skills test are about really the active participation in the exercises and being aware of your body as you're doing the exercises. I'm not going to assess at that point perfect technique. So then we're going to go into a little activity that's multitasking. During this week, this is when October 16th falls, and this is an addendum to the original handout. It's that most high schools, if you are in a high school setting, have a lot of students out to take the practice PSAT on that day. So I thought that there would be a couple of multitasking things you could do. So you could be building towards testing them. And at the same time, you could do an assignment. I call it the coloring pages assignment. I'll tell you more about that. And they could also be doing the Thinking Dancers journal writing, all at the same time as they are practicing for their skills test, maybe being assessed during that time, really starting that on Tuesday, taking that through Thursday. So you've got multiple things going on. You may have some students out, some students in. And then at the end of that week, I give a day for retesting to improve their grades. I felt like it was always very important, especially in this early ballet unit, to explain to both students and their parents that during the ballet unit, traditionally the grades would be a little bit lower. Ballet is a more difficult style of movement to achieve than some of the other things they were doing. So up front, you tell them it's going to be a little more difficult, and then I made sure to build in retesting activities. And the way I would retest was not that they did the whole test again, but I might look down the list and decide, okay, this group of students, I'd like to see them do the plie combination again. This group of students, I would like to see them do the tendu combination again. And this would be a way for them to add credit back in. I wouldn't let their grade go any lower, but they could add credit back in. So we're giving that mindset of constantly striving for improvement. So real quick about the coloring pages. The coloring page assignment, I would actually go on social media, the Pinterest stuff. I would go to all of our resources on the web, and I would find examples of dancers in the different time periods. So the royal court look, the romantic era, which is the longer tutu, the short tutu, which is very traditional. And then I would even jump forward to sort of what I'll call the Balanchine look, which was he used costume designers. His costume designers did more minimalistic looks for them. Even if it was adorned, it was still very close to the body. So we would have kind of, again, that fashion idea and the way that the costuming, the way that the clothing affects the movement, and the movement is affected by what is or is not restricted or revealed by the costume. So in my activity that I actually have the students doing sort of their own web quest to find examples and then bring those into you. So that way you get a variety of activities to use these for in the future. When we go into week 3, we're going to get into shortening the ballet bar combinations a little bit so that we can add some allegro skills. And I'm still working at the bar. We're not really going to the center for very much, but working at the bar, and we're adding susu and sauté and échappé and saut nu turn and a pirouette. You know, the basics, working in and out of releve, working on one foot. So they're starting to move a little bit quicker. Also wanted to point out that this is an addendum to the original calendar that on the Wednesday of that week is the 23rd is World Ballet Day. It's a very neat concept, started several years back. I actually have a lesson plan for viewing World Ballet Day. If you're not familiar with what World Ballet Day is, they have clips from several different ballet companies from around the world, and you can watch them in rehearsal and in performance and in classes. It's a really wonderful way for them to peer into the world of professional ballet and see that what these high achieving professionals are doing is the same kind of requirements that you're asking them to do. I have on Teachers Pay Teachers a viewing guide that I think would be wonderful for you to look at. That's another lead into a time period where you have a little bit of flexibility, where you can also start working maybe with a terminology and concepts worksheet. I also feel strongly that especially in the ballet unit, you have to give your students multiple ways to show you that they understand the correct way to do things in ballet class, because their bodies are not going to perfect those movements in a short amount of time. But many students will be able to say, hey, I understand that my heels are supposed to stay down in demi-plie, or I understand I'm supposed to maintain my rotation all the way through my rond de jambe, even if my body doesn't show it. So I like to do activities that will, in their minds, sort of pad their grades, because they can, if their body won't do it, at least they can show their mastery and understanding in a different way. At the end of that week, I have the Allegro combo movement puzzles. This is just a matter of taking all the little movements and thinking of your own little recipes, put it together in combinations, and let them try them. It's a really fun way to play with the movement without having to have them memorize a combination that they may not be able to achieve or sustain the turnout and the skill level, but they're starting to play with the ingredients that make up ballet performance combinations. That leads us into the last week. And again, like I said, I really work throughout my ballet unit sprinkling in other activities. So by the time I get to the last week of this, now I'm starting to take them into adagio skills. So what I would add at the bar is développé, fondue, of course, built into développé is retiré, and then I would move them to the center for positions of the body, à la quatrième devant, à la quatrième derrière, à la seconde, croisé devant. Start building that concept and to think about moving in the center of the room, and we don't add maybe our arabesque attitude if we're getting really, really brave. The story that I like to introduce during this week also, I like to start talking to them about ballet stories just in little snippets. And I love using Giselle because in Giselle we meet the Willies. And of course, if you look at the calendar, this is Halloween week. It falls in there. On the actual day of Halloween, I always have taken a break from whatever was my actual curriculum and done. We would think of it as movement improv or character building. So I would have a selection of crazy sound effects, Halloween sound effects, the toccata and fugue, any kind of music that gives you that creepy Halloween feeling. And I would allow them to really have fun and play with the music, it being expressive, creating character that fits the concepts that you are feeling in the music. So you would, creep like a spider, you would, wiggle and jiggle like a skeleton, you might float like a ghost. So it's really fun and easy stuff. It makes them feel like they're celebrating without you necessarily having to give them candy and trick or treat. And so then we wrap that week up still looking at our adagio skills. So if you look at this month in totality, all we've done is nibble around the edges of all the skills that you need in ballet, but we've done it in ways that are accessible to the students. Hopefully they're getting intrigued by it and not overwhelmed by it. So that's why there's a variety of activities. I hope you will tune in next month when I give you my November and probably December calendar all together, because I normally during November and December would move them into more of long combinations, both at the bar and then in center. This is when mostly during November I would also introduce the idea of lyrical dance and lyrical movement, which is based in ballet, and then it can be in more contemporary music than what they might hear if they're using ballet bar music. And then during the the last part of November and into December, we talk about the Nutcracker, and they do a creative project that does not require a whole lot of ballet skills, but it does allow a lot of freedom to develop character, to have fun, and to work in a group and learn the history of the Nutcracker all at the same time. So I hope you'll look forward to that. Again, if you need any help or you'd like to chat with me about this, I'm easily found on Facebook, Danceable Thoughts. You can email me, Angela at Danceable Thoughts. I hope you'll go to the website, become a follower, and subscribe, and I will be happy to help you introduce your students to ballet.